Hey guys, welcome back. This is episode 12 of my real estate investing series, and in this episode, we are talking about closing costs. I'm going to be estimating closing costs for you on both a condo and a co-op, and I'm also going to be showing you how you can reduce your closing costs. So stay tuned, I'm talking about everything here. So before we jump into the video for this episode, I just wanted to clear up a couple of items. Firstly, I skipped episode 11, so this is now episode 12. The reason for that leads me into my next piece of news that I have for you, which is that all of the audio for these videos thus far has been converted into a podcast. So if you prefer to listen on the go, I created a podcast for you guys. It's the exact same content as what you find in this YouTube series, but the good part about it is that you can listen on the go. You don't have to have YouTube up on your phone in order to hear the content. So if you're interested in checking out the podcast, you can search for Christina Kremides. The name of the podcast is Real Estate Investing in New York, and you can find that podcast on any of your favorite podcast player. It's on Apple and it's on Spotify, as well as many others. So back to why this is episode number 12. I actually messed up the numbering of videos back when we did episodes 8A and 8B, which was a two-part video about negotiating. And when I went to upload the podcasts, I could not label my episodes A and B, so I had to upload them as numbers 8 and 9. And long story short, here we are. We're at episode 12. There's no episode 11, and we're talking all about closing costs in today's episode. So closing costs can be pretty significant, so it's important that we allocate the correct amount of money to your closing costs whenever you're engaging in a real estate transaction. Closing costs will differ based on the type of property that you're buying, whether it's a co-op or a condo or a townhouse, as well as whether or not you're taking out a mortgage. In this video, we are covering closing costs for condos and co-ops, and both examples will have a mortgage involved, so you can see the prices for every scenario, and then I will also be showing you the closing costs assuming there is no mortgage. In both of the examples I'm going to be showing, I am also assuming a $1 million purchase price. And for the mortgage, I'm assuming that you are putting a standard 20% down. So that means that you're financing 80% of the purchase price, which is financing $800,000. All of the dollar amounts that I'm providing in this video are obviously estimates. Every situation is unique, and policies and rules are also changing day by day. So if you are engaged in a transaction and you want to know more about your closing costs, I always recommend consulting with your real estate attorney because they are really the ones that have the most up-to-date information about your particular transaction, and they can help you more specifically. And the final thing to note before I get into the real information of this video is that these examples are pretty close to home when it comes to typical closing costs that are not sponsor apartments. Sponsor sales, sponsor units, they have very different closing costs, which I did talk about in episode 6, all about sponsor units. So if you want to go back and refer there, feel free, but we are not covering sponsor unit closing costs in this video. Okay, for our first example, we're looking at a condo. Again, the price is $1 million and you are taking out a mortgage for $800,000. So I'm going to display a little visual as well just to create a list of closing costs for you because I think it might be easy to see the costs listed out. So you have your attorney fee. If you're purchasing property in New York State, you are going to be using a real estate attorney. There's really no way around it. You would never want to do it any other way. I know some other states don't use real estate attorneys, but we do here. So that cost is going to run you around $3,000 on the lower side in New York City. So that's a cost that you definitely have to be prepared for. If you're taking out a mortgage, you have bank fees, application fees, processing fees, various fees that the bank has in order to process your loan. I included estimated ranges for what those numbers could be here, but obviously every bank is different. If you remember from earlier episodes when we talked about the property purchase process, the appraisal is a necessary step in the process when you are getting a mortgage. This is so that the bank can make sure that the price you're paying for the apartment is actually the market value. So the bank always does that double check. check. That appraisal will run you around $500. There's also a bank attorney involved when you're getting a mortgage. That could be around $1,200. And the bank may collect in advance between 2 and 6 months of property taxes, which they will hold in escrow. So for this example, I assumed property taxes of $500 a month and the maximum amount of time for the sake of the example. So 6 months at $500 a month gets you around $3,000. Since condos are considered real property, there is a necessary step with New York, which involves the recording of this transaction. So therefore you have a recording fee, which would be around $500. The exception is if you're in Nassau County, it's more expensive and it'll run you around $1,500. Again, since a condo is real property, you receive a title when you purchase it, and you'll probably want to get something called title insurance, which protects you from fraudulent ownership claims to your property. This title insurance is usually required when you're getting a mortgage, and it'll run you around $4,500 for a property of this price. When you are taking out a mortgage on a condo, you do have to pay mortgage tax. The mortgage tax changes based on the size of your loan, but for a loan at the amount we're looking at, the mortgage tax will be a little over 2%. So that will be a fee to you of $17,400, and that entire amount is paid by you at closing. Mortgage tax only applies when you're buying a condo. It does not apply when you're buying a co-op. And here's the last big one, mansion tax. Mansion tax is applicable when you're buying a property that costs $1 million or more. The amount of mansion tax that you have to pay does depend on the purchase price. It starts at $1 million and the tax will increase from there. So in this example, since the purchase price of the property is $1 million, you're paying a mansion tax equal to 1% of the purchase price, which equals $10,000. So that pretty much sums up your estimated itemized fees for closing costs, and your total for this particular condo would come in around $42,000 in closing costs. Obviously, that's a lot of money, so it's something that you want to be aware of. However, if you weren't getting a mortgage, I went ahead and deducted the fees that are associated with the bank and with the necessary steps of the mortgage, and that would bring your closing costs down to closer to about $18,250. Further, if you were buying a condo priced under $1 million and you weren't getting a mortgage, that would further reduce your closing costs because you would not have to pay the mansion tax, and therefore your closing costs would net out around $8,250. That's a lot less than $42,000. Of course, it's not always possible to not take out a mortgage. It's not always possible to find a property that meets your criteria that's under $1 million. But if it is possible, then it's something you may want to actually think about. Next, we are going to look at the co-op with the same purchase price of $1 million, same mortgage that you're taking out of $800,000. Again, you're going to be using an attorney. The attorney fee may differ slightly based on whether you're buying a condo or a co-op, but it's probably going to be somewhere around that $3,000 price, so I left it the same. Again, assuming you're taking out a mortgage, you have some bank fees, processing fees, application fees, as well as the appraisal fee, which is still required even on a co-op. Since the bank is involved, they want to make sure that the property is appraising for the price that you're paying for it. So I've listed those fees out for you. Now comes the lien search fee. There's no title that you get when you buy a co-op because a co-op is shares of a corporation. So instead, a lien search is conducted. This ensures that there are no outstanding tax or mechanics liens, bankruptcies, or any other violations that you would need to be aware of on this property. That'll usually run you around $350. There's something called a UCC1 filing fee. That'll run you $20 to $50, so I assumed $50 here. Side note that in Nassau County, this will cost you closer to $350. As for the building application fee, the co-op will charge you to process your application for purchase, so I assumed $250 here, but of course that price will always change based on the building. And they will also run your credit when you are purchasing a co-op, so I included a $50 credit check fee. There's also a recognition agreement which costs $250, and that is an agreement between the bank and the co-op when you're getting a mortgage. And finally, the big one again is your mansion tax. You're not getting out of mansion tax, unfortunately, if you're buying a property of any kind worth $1 million or more. So in this case, again, you've got that $10,000 tax. Your total here for the co-op comes in around $16,900. So it's substantial, substantial, but it's still, as you see, way less than the condo. If I was to deduct all of the bank-related fees, if you were not getting a mortgage, that would reduce your closing costs to around $13,700. And finally, if the purchase price was below $1 million, you would remove your mansion tax, and that brings your closing costs down to $3,700. That's substantially lower than your other scenarios. In conclusion, condo closing costs tend to be higher than co-op closing costs. Taking out a mortgage increases your closing costs because you have mortgage tax to deal with, as well as some bank fees. And purchasing a property over $1 million incurs you an additional mansion tax, which affects your closing costs. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, your mortgage and the price of the property isn't always something you're in complete control of, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind in case it is something that you could change. I'm also going to mention again that it is always the best possible idea to consult with your real estate attorney when you're looking into getting the exact figures for any of your anticipated closing costs. It's really important that you speak to your attorney about your specific transaction and make sure that you're not missing anything. And though the costs that are listed in this video are estimates, I did have a real estate attorney cross-check my numbers, so I wanted to say thanks to Milan at Rain Gotch Law. He's an excellent real estate attorney and knowledgeable resource if you're looking to purchase or sell in New York. I'll also leave the info for his firm in the video description here. And that wraps up this episode about closing costs. I hope you found this video super helpful. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the bell icon to make sure that you're notified when I post new videos. Additionally, if you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on the podcast. That way you'll get new episodes right in your app. Sharing a review on the podcast also really helps to get this content out to more people. When there are more positive reviews on a podcast, it will be featured more. And I would love for this free information to get out to more and more people. So if you could help me with that, I would really appreciate it. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. My handle is Downtown Native. That's a really great place where we can connect on more of a personal level. And finally, if you ever have any questions at all that are real estate related, you can email me at christina.cremidas@element.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode, and stay tuned for the next one, which will be posted next week.